Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors. Wherever you are in the world, I do hope you're having a good day. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 82. On today's podcast, I had the immense pleasure of having Ete Davies. He is the Chief Executive Officer at the Engineering Group. We talked about a number of different subjects, a number of different topics, and yes, it was a joy to have him on. I look forward to speaking to him again, hopefully in the near future. So please sit back, enjoy the podcast, and yeah, if you haven't already, please subscribe. It will help us out a lot. Have a great day, guys, and yeah, enjoy the show. Peace. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a good day. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Ooh, this is episode, I believe 82. Today, I have Ete Davies. He is the CEO of the Engine Group, creative director type sitch. How are you today, sir? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm looking. What's my last day before I go on 2 weeks of what counts for a vacation in this day and age, which is basically 2 weeks away from Zoom and the sort of makeshift office desk that has been my world for the past 4 or 5 months. So I actually like getting out, spending time with family, getting outside. Moving around a lot more. Like exercise has definitely taken a bit of a dip in the last few months.
Oh yeah, trust me. Look, put it this way: before like the gyms came open, like I was like running literally every day in July, and was like, yeah, run, 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 run. I was like
Yeah.
covering crazy distances. I was like, okay. I was like doing, I think, a half marathon literally every day for 31 days, and it was like, yeah,
Right.
yeah, gym. Like I got myself some dumbbells, like, and I basically the gyms have come back. My running's gone from all the way up there off the edge of a cliff right down. So like, yeah, I went running. Ooh, I did a 7 mile run yesterday. Was it yesterday? No, day before. And all I've got to say is I felt every single one of those 7 miles in feet and inches. That's like, that's like, yeah, one. So now you've got 2 weeks off. So what, like, apart from escaping Zoom, are you going to get out of the city? Are you going to maybe go to Wales?
Oh, that has been the sort of the cosmic comedy of the last like 7 days or so for me. So when we started kind of planning this, because it's my birthday at the end of the month. Well, next week, turn the big 40, so it's like my 40th birthday. Strange year to have your 40th in, because invariably what you have at that time is a big surprise party. Now, I don't really like surprises, so in a way, this has been a blessing in disguise, because there's no one can plan anything because you just can't get people together. So I got away with that one, but I thought I sort of planned to go away anyway, because I wasn't sure whether you'd be able to have gatherings, and I wanted to get something in place to avoid a surprise party. And so I started looking early on at like Spain, maybe France, and then Italy, and then Portugal, because this time last year, myself and my family, we went out to Portugal for a few days. We had a family surfing holiday. We surfed for the first time. Yeah, it was good fun. So I thought we'd do that again. Portugal was on the quarantine list. So we sort of pulled that out, and then
keeps growing.
yeah, exactly. It keeps growing or shortening. So Italy and Portugal were the top places then for us to go to, but they were obviously on the quarantine list. And so then we started looking at France and Spain, and those places joined the quarantine list. And then as of literally 2 days ago, we just gave up on flights and said, look, we'll stay local. And Italy and Portugal are off the quarantine list now. So just yeah, I'm staying. I'm actually gonna stick around London, do some reading. I'm gonna try and make some time to really catch up with friends. Like the sort of because in your day to day, it's sort of hard to keep the connections going, unless you happen to be working with people, or they're, you know, your life plans it whereby you have regular contact with them. You don't work at your relationships the way you used to when you were, you know, younger. You kind of hope things throw you together. So I'm going to use the next couple of weeks just to reach out to people, to call people, check in with people. You know, my uni mates who, we were all tight. We're like a family, like brothers and sisters. But we're still tight, but we just don't speak to each other that much. So I'm going to try and do a bit of that. Maybe drive to see a few of them, depending on where it is, meet socially distanced, and just get back to connecting with people.
Yeah, I've got to say, you mentioned your uni. Now, this is the thing. Okay, now I'm gonna just go with the shortened version of the name of your university because, hey, it's like, no, I can't. Look, I've tried 4 times. I've tried changing teeth and everything like that. No, it's not going to get me. Not on this podcast. I control things here. Yeah, you went to ABBA, right?
Yes, that's right. I went to ABBA, Aberystwyth. If you're going to be brave and try and do the sort of the long version of it. I had a great time in Aberystwyth. I mean, it was a different place, you know. So I'm Lewisham born, southeast London, Nigerian family, kind of come from that background and culture my sort of whole life, pretty diverse. You can imagine the Midwest coast of Wales being as far away, particularly in the sort of like late 90s, like it was far away from London as you could imagine it could be. And I remember the journey to get to ABBA, like you take the train to Birmingham, change at Birmingham New Street Station.
Yeah.
And you get on this Arriva, like Welsh train service. And somewhere between Welshpool and a place called like Machynlleth, which is, I hope I said that right. It's like on the way to Aberystwyth. The train would just pull off and stop for about 45 minutes. And you kind of go, what's happened? I'm in the middle of nowhere. This is starting to turn into a horror film. I'm really worried now.
Yeah.
And then another train would pass you. And the reason that happened is that there was just one track, literally one track going into Aberystwyth. So there's only one way in and one way out of this town. And then you got the mountains and the sea. But it was beautiful there, you know, like countryside, really old sort of famous historical university town. Because it is a small town in terms of population in Wales, the students made a big part of the culture and the population during term time. So it had a completely different vibe to it, I guess, than most of the towns around it. And because it was a campus uni, rather than, you know, my brother's experience of where he was in London and he was in the various different colleges, it was a bit like being an American, you know, like an American college sitcom or drama whereby everybody knows each other. You've got like the sort of the different groups and everyone's kind of connected, and there's also interwoven stories, and it's very small, very close knit. And yeah, you form bonds about it, particularly as a lot of us that ended up in Aberystwyth. I mean, many obviously it was through choice, some through clearing, but you know, quite a few of us and my friends, we came from the cities. You know, we came from like Bristol, Birmingham, like London. A few of my friends that came from Greece, you know, like Athens and so on. We bonded together because we were a bit like in a new land, so like quite literally a new land, because the signs are in a different language. Everything's in Welsh first.
Oh yeah.
You know, when you sit your exams, everything is in Welsh first, and then they tell you in English. And so we sort of bonded over that, but made a lot of friends there. You know, both local, you know, sort of Welsh people that lived there, but also students that came in. Lots of fond memories, actually.
Yeah. Here I ask, was one of those fond memories of a nightclub on a pier? I've got to ask because
peer pressure. Yeah. I think that's what it's called, peer pressure. Yeah. Do you know it then?
This is big. I don't know it personally. My lady, a best mate, went to ABBA.
Right.
I said it, yes. She went to Aberystwyth, and like basically, she told me part of the story, and she goes, yes. She didn't tell me the whole story of what went down, but she goes, this will always be known as the night we lost the cheesy chips. I was like, there's like, tell me more. She's like, no. You have to. I have to now track down Emily, like somewhere on the border of Wales, and to get the full story. But yeah, air
Yeah.
pressure. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's good fun. It's like I said, it was very much the closest that you have those sort of American soap operas that are based on like college campus, and you've got like the different characters that were within it and everything else, and it was very much like that because you had all these people that came from outside of this really small town in Wales, that was on the coast, like picturesque, really beautiful town, seaside, mountains, sort of old Edwardian, Victorian, kind of era buildings and so on. But close to 50% of the population were like students. Majority of them young students, but also, obviously more mature ones. So it was there was a unique energy, I think, about the place as a result.
Nice, nice. So one of the things which I like when you were there at ABBA, like one of the things what kind of confuses me, like you studied biology, then you went, hey, you know what, business management is the thing for me. That is quite a change right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's my route into education, like most children of West African descent, is very much shaped by your parents' decision as to what your future is going to be.
You're going to be a
yeah, in my entire life, there were only, despite the fact I knew there were other professions in the world and I'd experienced them, there were only three that existed, which were a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And back in school, like I wasn't bad at it, but I would never really enjoyed maths that much. So the engineering route was sort of out for me. I was into Lego and building and creating things, but the closest person I knew that was an engineer was my uncle, who was a mechanical engineer, and he would just do most of my trigonometry work for me, and I just couldn't get my head around it. So engineering went out of the picture. Law seemed to be endless reading, so I wasn't keen on that. My dad actually studied law, and ironically he went on to be a journalist, but I didn't fancy that. I had a natural drive towards science. My mother is a doctor, she's an anaesthetist, but I just liked, I think I've got quite an analytical mind, and I was particularly interested in how, like, basically everything in this world is connected, right? We're all formed of similar composite atoms and molecules, and we're all reliant on each other, but at both a micro and a macro level. And that always fascinated me growing up as a kid, and that, natural sciences and so on was an interest there. So I went to study biology at Aberystwyth. Now, Aber is really famous for natural sciences. They got a lot of money from the EU, ironically, at the time, towards things like breeding centres and labs. So they were one of the best, I think, in Western Europe at the time. They might still be, actually. So it was a good uni to go to sort of study biological sciences. And that's where my interest lay. I think secretly my mum hopes that I'd do that and then finally decide to just move into an actual medical degree, right, and study medicine. I got to the end of my biology course at ABBA and sort of, I mean, I may have got some bum career advice, but I realized that the routes that were open to me were, more academia or lab work, or go down the teaching route. There were some jobs, I guess, in the private sector around biology or environmental sciences, but they weren't really highly paid, and the environmental agenda wasn't what it was now. Like I remember in the sort of the early 2000s when I graduated, we were still trying to convince people to recycle. Like that's sort of where we were compared to where we are now. So I mean, I never really was a fan of the lab work, to be honest. I'm not squeamish, but like dissecting things, cutting things up, like waiting around in the lab for test tube, that really wasn't my bag. So I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to do academia. PGCE to be a teacher was like another 4 or 5 years, and I was kind of done with studying by then. So I just thought, what else can I do? And I tried to apply for a bunch of graduate courses, at the various different consultancies at the time, so like the PwCs and the Arthur Andersons and everything else. And I wasn't making much progress getting onto those graduate schemes for a number of reasons. I didn't quite have the qualifications, didn't quite fit the background, didn't know the right contacts to get in. So what I thought was, well, the uni that I was at, Aberystwyth, they were also getting a bonus from bursaries from the EU to set up their business studies college or the economics college. And so there were courses there that you could take if you could prove that you had enough credits from other areas and, you could apply yourself to learning other things. And I thought, okay, well, I've always had an interest in marketing and particularly in advertising, actually. And I did business studies at GCSE and was quite good at it. So, naively, I thought, well, if I can take this master's and I can get some more qualifications specifically in this area, it's going to help me when I try and reapply for these graduate courses, because I'm just going to stand out a little bit more and I have a little bit more robustness around my qualifications and my experience that might, help me where I struggled in other areas. So with the bursary, I was able to get on, study that MSc in economics, which had a lot of focus on international business and e-business and e-commerce at the time, which was, again, just really in sort of the early days of, Flash and action scripts, and thinking where we are now to what I was studying at the time. And at the time they're saying it's going to revolutionize businesses, but this was, I don't think Amazon was a well-known thing at the time I was studying that, and the concept of e-commerce was what I was learning. But yeah,
when you say Flash, like Flash, does that even exist anymore? No, I don't think
no.
it does.
No.
Action script, I have no idea, because I've never come across that in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It's like you're like when you say that, you're just like, oh wow, it feels.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of the modules I studied was advanced relationship marketing, and it was all about the beginning of email marketing. And at the time, learning about it was like, it felt like you were being told about the future. This is how you, rather than sending stuff through post, you're going to send people emails and you'll need to sort of capture their, data, and then you can send them this template and adjust little bits within the template. And that was mind blowing in terms of like a personalization that you could do. And just look at where we are now, where I could deep fake a video and send that to, to somebody, and that could be me in person, or whoever it is that they want to speak to, really. So
yeah, no, but like, this is the thing, when you go, email marketing, like, look, at this moment in time, I think, a 10-year-old can have access to a MailChimp account, and like, they could be up and running in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And they don't need to pay a thing until, I think, like 2,000 emails in. I know more sophisticated stuff out there, this, that, the other, but it's above my pay grade at this moment in time. So like, this is the thing, like you got the qualification, and it was a case of, did you go back to the same sort of like graduate programs, or did you just say, so that I'm hop, skipping and jumping something higher?
So I tried going back to a couple. I tried looking again, and just realized that I just couldn't get onto the tracks with a few of them. And my parents, they'd moved out of South London, like Lewisham, like a few years before, and I'd been living in Folkestone in Kent. And my my mum, she's a great doctor. She's well respected in her local community. Lots of people are very fond of her. She forms a lot of networks and colleagues. Like, there was a connection to a colleagues of hers, either as a friend or a partner. Their partner had set up this agency called Vizark, which was in it was Mersham Hatch, where it is now, but it was somewhere at Stanford North, which is just outside between Folkestone and Ashford. And it was a small little full service agency, and they were looking for an account executive, and it was mainly through my mum and that connections and the goodwill that she had that I got the chance to sort of go down and interview for the job. And it was a pretty junior role. Like, it's sort of like at that point, like a general factotum sort of role. So you're doing a bit of everything. But it was a great exposure, really, because being, you know, an account executive in a small agency like that, where you're doing a bit of everything within the creative spectrum, you got to be account man, strategist, creative, project manager, you know, you name, like, experience designer from one day to the next, or, you know, in different parts of a project. So it was a lot of great exposure. You get sort of thrown in a little bit at the deep end, so you have to learn quickly, which I always liked. And because it was full service, you got that experience across everything from radio to print to digital. Yeah, so it was, I think, you know, ironically in hindsight, probably one of the best starts I could have had in this industry, because of the level of exposure that I got to lots of different things.
You know, like, this is the thing. Back in the day, like when you first started out, like, I think a lot of people would have went, yeah, you need to be more sort of specialized in this one sort of particular area. And I think they would have been right to say it at the time. Now, just with the way the market is, like, but there is just so much going on. There's just like, okay, if you don't sort of have that Swiss Army knife of skills, like, it makes it sometimes very difficult, especially if you're in a I'll say small to medium sized agency, or small to medium sized company.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the sort of cross-functional experience and adaptability are so vital now in a lot of professional careers, but particularly within the creative industries. You know, there's been a lot of talk about T-shaped people for a while, but I've recently been sort of extolling the virtues of becoming an X-shaped person, which means actually you're much more cross-functioning in your expertise. And quite often the leaders that we need in the creative industries are those people who are X-shaped, who actually have reasonably deep expertise or understanding in a number of areas. Because, you know, creativity, particularly modern creativity, you know, which is very much sort of driven and born out of a lot of technology these days, advances a lot. There's a lot of complexity. There's so much diversity and breadth in what you can do that you need to know lots of different things and enough about lots of little things to be able to work with lots of different people actually to make great things. So yeah, I think that the other thing about that experience, one thing is sort of, I think it developed in me, which I think is also very important. I think just generally in life is the concept of a growth mindset, right? So to your point around multi-skills, I am a firm believer in that there's nothing that you can't learn to some level of accomplishment. The only thing that you really need is time. You know, like, if you can make time or carve the time out, then you can learn to some level of mastery pretty much most things in the world. And so quite often when we're thinking about how to make something creatively or switch our careers or a life decision, a lot of it's done from the point of, you don't know enough about something, so you immediately go, well, there's no chance I'm going to ever be good at that, because I need to learn how to do it, or I don't know how to do it. And the truth is, we never really stop learning. Like, that's the beauty of human beings. We have the constant capacity to learn, even up until, you know, sort of our last days. But when we're a child, it's expected, you know, and we go, okay, you learn. You never have a kid going, oh, I'm not going to try doing that. They just go, well, I'll learn how to ride a bike at some day. They don't write it off because learning is a problem. It's a fact of existence for children, right? They have to be sponges. But as we become adults, we assume that we know stuff already. And the stuff that we don't know, that means we have to learn, whether it's an ego thing, becomes irrelevant. But it should be the opposite, actually. As an adult, we should go, actually, I need to be adding to my skills and, you know, constantly developing and learning myself.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, this is the thing. This is like you turning like 40 at the end of the month. Happy birthday, by the way, again. Like, when you said earlier in our conversation that, yeah, there's friends you need to sort of like reconnect with, because it was like, before it was just like, yeah, it just happened. Now it requires more effort. Like, when you're in your sort of teens, and I've said this time before. Time before. When you're in your teens, your sort of social network and like everything like that is just kicking full steam ahead. You're still learning things left, right, and center. 20s, still the same. It's still up there. Then when you sort of hit your 30s, like late 20s, 30s, things like social things start to fall away because, people have got kids, like life and all of this kicks in. And the sort of learning sort of plateaus because you're either doing something where it's not expected for you to go beyond, or you just like, oh, this is the level it stays at. And then as time goes on, you get a little bit more set in your ways, and you walk into like, if it was out of a business setting, like where you're trying, like meeting new people to become friends, I would say it's been a very long time when you can go, yes, I met this person and they're my new friend. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's ironic you say that, because I often have this joke with my mate, and he's probably the last new friend that I have made in about 5 or 6 years. And we work in the same industry. We met at an event. Bizarrely, he has the same birthday as me. His name's Mark Bennett, so I'll give him a shout out and happy birthday, Mark. But it's the last adult. I mean, it's probably the only adult friend I've made outside of having directly worked with that person. You know what I mean? It's like, so not that they weren't adults, but I'm sort of putting uni mates to the side. But how you make friends as a child, I guess you kind of find things that you have shared interests over, or like it seems a lot easier. Whereas to your point, when you hit adulthood, a lot centers around professional life, or if you have community of family, then they kind of bring friends into it. Maybe if you have kids, you sort of make awkward friends through the primary school gates with other parents or what have you. But you don't do the thing you do as a kid, whereby you just walk up to a random stranger in the cinema and say, hey, I liked your shoes, as you would do when you were a kid or whatever. Start chatting and then suddenly decide, hey, should we hang out together and be friends? That doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
If someone did that to you, like you're on the train or a bus stop, you're like, hey, I like your shoes. It's like,
it's that sort of, it's that little, I guess, the magic of what we have as childhood, which is just being much more open and receptive to a lot of things in the world. It disappears, and I think you have more acquaintances when you get older. I mean, there's that you would call friends. So for example, people that you see at the gym, or like they might say, yeah, we're friends, we go for a beer or whatever else, but it's not the same friendship bond, if you know what I mean. It's an acquaintance.
Like this is like sort of pushing yourself to still sort of learn and grow. It's like one of those things which I think it's one of those things which I agree with you when you say you have to like do it more. So like it's an essential thing, a part of us. When you don't do that, you get too set in your ways, and by the time it happens, like the world moves. The world moves, and it moves again, and before you know it, you're irrelevant. So it's like
absolutely. And I think I'm fairly reflective, because maybe it's my birthday and I'm sort of looking at the consequence of time. But just thinking of, do you remember the sense of accomplishment when you were a child, right? And you learned to ride a bike, or you learned to swim, and you suddenly go, I didn't know how to do that last week, I know how to do that now. And you felt better within yourself. I've rediscovered that through learning to do things I couldn't do before. And quite often as an adult, sometimes you'll actively learn them, sometimes it will be passive. But we don't ever stop back, especially when we're sort of developing our careers and learning new things, to really take stock and just actually celebrate the fact that before we started doing a job 5 years ago, we had no idea how to do something, and suddenly we're masters of it, and be proud of that. That's something to be celebrated, and give yourself a pat on the back and feel a sense of achievement from it. We don't, because we're just on the treadmill. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, but actually, learning is rewarding, and there's an immense sense of achievement and accomplishment and pride that you get when you realize that you suddenly have acquired a new skill, capability, bit of knowledge that you didn't have before. And I think people need to take time to recognize those moments a bit more.
Understood. Yeah, no, absolutely. So what would you say was one of the new skills you learned?
No, that is a good question. I guess the new skill that I've learned, which has probably shaped me the most in the last couple of years, really is about I wouldn't say I've mastered it, but mindfulness has been a big part of it. So I'm someone who has definitely an overactive brain and imagination, and sort of focusing and concentrating on things is challenging sometimes. And meditation, I always used to battle with. I really wanted to try to learn it and to do it, to sort of deal with lots of things of being calm in pressured situations and so on. So I was determined to get good at it, but I always struggled with it because I could never clear my mind of the thought. Something would always kind of come in.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until not lockdown, but maybe a few months before it that, I don't know, something just clicked, because I've been using Headspace as well, sort of like sort of guided meditation, and something just clicked where I realized that, you know, having the thoughts in your head as you're trying to find that meditative state isn't necessarily the challenge. What it is trying to make sure that you're just more present in the moment that you're in, and as fleeting as that is, trying to get more of those. And that was like a watershed moment for me, because once I realized that thing about being present and worrying less about, oh, my mind needs to be clear and I need to sort of be seeing this blue space and all of that, I suddenly found that actually I was able to, I feel like I have much more control of my general emotions, be there from anxiety to stress, because I'm much more present on what's going on within me. You know, whereas before, when you're feeling pressure, it can manifest it in this all different sorts of ways, right? From nerves to whatever else. But we don't really stop and thinking, okay, what's generating my nerves, and sort of center yourself and then actually find a way to either embrace it or manage through it. But recently, since that moment, I've become more conscious of it, and it's you know, it's been life-changing, quite literally, just being able to suddenly be present with what's happening with you emotionally and being able to process it and deal with it. And that doesn't necessarily even mean battling it, but you kind of go, yeah, I'm feeling apprehensive about that, and you actually take a second to sort of really process what's going on and then just go with it, you know.
Yeah. Would you say that something which would help, like helped you with regards to your sort of leadership skills over the last few months?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. I think, I think mindfulness is one of those things that, you know, leaders need to just learn to do, you know, and to sort of to get better at, not just because, you know, having knowledge and mastery of yourself, given the challenging situations that you have, are important, particularly with pressure. But that thing of presence means that when people are talking, because one thing leaders are notoriously bad at, and I was guilty of this for a long time, is like not really listening, but listening to respond and to answer and to push. And when you learn to have just a bit more present state of mind, you really start to listen. And when you generally start to listen and receive both the words but the non-verbal cues, it's like getting an additional source of information. It's almost a little bit, it feels a little bit like you suddenly become psychic, because you read stuff that you just didn't pick up on before. And it fundamentally changes your decision, generally for the better, just how you interact with your team, how you respond, you know, to clients and what we're doing, or, you know, how you call a situation. But it's just that data is there all the time, but we don't really train ourselves to receive that. We just train ourselves to broadcast quite often. So I think it's important for leaders, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like this, one of the things I would say is interesting in the times we are right now, hopefully coming out of planet lockdown ever so gingerly. When you say yes, it's helped you to pick up on other things, it's like being psychic. Is it like, can you still sort of pick up on those things through, say, a remote like call like this, or is it a case of it works better when you're there in the room with people?
It definitely works better if you're there in the room with people, because there's just so much that I think you read and you pick up from like a feeling and like non-verbal cues and stuff. But like even in the Zoom call, you know, sort of when you have to actively do it, you know, sort of think, okay, I'll be present in this moment. You sort of really listen to the content of what people are saying, and you think about the motivation for them saying it, and I think you just react in a better way, because you're not reacting to the instant thing. You're not reacting from the point of your own emotions. You're actually trying to really understand the other person's perspective. And because so much of leadership is about service to others, right? It's about understanding people, motivating them, creating the environment for them to be successful. That only happens when you really hear people, right? You give them the time to be heard, to be listened, and then you respond to that in a way that values and respects what they've just told you. And that skill comes out of being able to really listen to people.
Like, this is the thing with you have, I got to say, you had quite a journey to sort of be like to become like CEO. And I got to, well, with all journeys, it's not a smooth line up. Finding your own companies as well. So what would you say was like one of the most sort of challenging moments on that sort of journey to where you are today?
It's a good question. Like, there's I'd say the most challenging moment was I mean, this is something that sort of happened at various points throughout my career, but was most exacerbated at towards the end of my time at AKQA, which, you know, is not necessarily you know, this isn't a bad reflection on the company. It's just the situation that we're in. But I'm the sort of person, if you tell me that something is impossible or I'm not ready for it, it can't be done. There's a, you know, weird, maybe Nigerian stubborn streak in me, which is, well, I'm going to go and show you now, and then I'll do it. Do you know what I mean? I'll sort of find a way, or, you know, learn the skills or sort of prove it. So that's the easiest way to kind of egg me on. And when I was at, you know, AKQA, I thought I'd grown a lot, you know, professionally in my career, and I was part of a global network, and we were managing people in North America and Europe and Asia, and I'd spent quite a bit of time out covering as an MD in Shanghai and putting together a business plan and helping to get that office back on its track and building a culture and meeting clients, and then realizing that I wanted to go down that route and be, you know, an MD and you know, like, CEO eventually. And because I hadn't come through the typical tracks that MDs and CEOs come through, which is generally a client service role or a management role. And, you know, I wouldn't necessarily describe myself as the extrovert, alpha, ego-driven sort of center of everything type of leader. I didn't fit the model that, you know, existed for leadership, not just in AKQA, but actually in a lot of places across our industry. So sort of saying to people, look, I quite fancy being an MD, would be met with, well, I'm not quite sure you're either ready for that or you're right for that. Are you, you know, are you sure it's something you want to do, you know, based on your personality type? And I'm like, well, surely there's no such thing as bad sort of leadership style. Everything's contextual to the situation. There is no one size fits all model or mold to leadership. Despite the fact that, and maybe that's one of the issues I think in our industry, is that for a long time we've been trying to create leaders of the same mold in a creative industry, which we should require different types of leadership. And so being told you should pick a different career path when you inherently know you can do it was the big challenge. And with no option for that at AKQA, trying to go to other agencies and going for other interviews and pretty much hitting the same response. People going, well, you didn't come from project management, and, you know, like, well, you didn't come from client service and strategy, and all of the excuses and the reasons, until, you know, I was fortunate enough the guys gave me the opportunity at AnalogFolk, and you know, the rest is history, because I was successful at that agency and sort of proved all the doubters wrong. But that was frustrating, actually. It was between the point of leaving AKQA before joining AF, it was probably, I'd say there was some pretty disheartening, depressing times, being, you know, sort of constantly pushed back from achieving an ambition that you know you can achieve. It's just other people are placing their constraints and their restrictions, they're projecting that onto you.
Yeah, no, I understand that totally. Like, because like, yeah, when you kind of like, when they're pushing their insecurities on, making their, like, trying to make them your insecurities, that is super frustrating. But also, one of the things you see it time and time and time again, like, if someone's being successful at the time, like, you can like put that into business, sports, military, or whatnot. Everyone will like want a clone of that particular model until like, and they'll run that particular model until, and it doesn't happen straight away, but it's not been as successful as it once was before. It hasn't been successful, and it keeps on going down until it hits that point of zero. Then there's crazy panic going, oh, what the hell? We need to find something new. But they get stuck in that whole model until someone does something, and oh, that's the maverick we need. And then they repeat the same process.
A friend of mine, my mate James, we've often talked, actually, and I have to take a tip from you on setting up our own podcast about history being written by the winners, and the fact that like there is there's sort of the deification and fating of a particular type of leadership, you know, to the point that we've been talking about, which, you know, the sort of Silicon Valley-esque, like, take people out at whatever costs, you know, like self-made. No one is self-made. Everyone's given a break, right? Do you know what I mean? Somebody gives you an opportunity at some point. But there's a narrative that's being written around those individuals, which then is portrayed as, this is how you become leadership. This is what is success. This is the personality traits you need. And it's wrong. Do you know what I mean? There are successful people across the entire spectrum of personality types and behaviors. Quite often, a lot of those people were given advantages to get to where they are, and there are people who have come through much more difficult situations with different styles. And yeah, we've often joked about, if we ever get around to having a podcast, it just exposes that myth a little, you know, the way that we sort of like that, the narrative that's built around a one size fits all to something being achieved or being successful, when the reality is that there are many ways to achieve anything in this life. There are many ways to solve a problem, you know, in the world.
Like the whole thing is, I think, like, people need to like be clear on that definition of success. And like, that's why I think people have got sort of lost in many respects. Like, a few years ago, it was like, be a multi-millionaire, and like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's like focused on that. Now, like, kind of something I hope sort of gets a little bit more traction. Like the hipster lifestyle, it's been with us for a good chunk of time, but when I say that, it's like it seems like there's a band of groups of people which are doing their own little thing. It's like going, okay, I got this craft beer, or I like, and like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not gonna make them like multi-millionaires or whatnot, but they're happy. And like, you know, if that can be opened up to more people, that'll be great, because it's like, I'm doing my thing and I'm happy with that.
And I think that, like, you're so right. And when you say the sort of definition of success, because it all comes down to self-fulfillment. And, you know, as you said, that sort of that, whether it was born out of the 80s or whatever else, but the idea of self-fulfillment being purely from money is fundamentally flawed, because that we are complex individuals, and there are many things that make up our definitions of, you know, fulfillment. And there are different levels to which people have that, and money is only a small part of it. You know, sort of self-actualization, you know, self-knowledge or autonomy, freedom. You know, those are things that make a much bigger part of your own self-fulfillment. You know, family, security, like all of those things. And I think a bit more of a realization of that. And if anything, I think this pandemic, ironically, will have forced probably the whole world to reappraise it, right? There's nothing more than mortality that makes us as human beings reappraise our lives.
Yeah.
And this is one of the few times where the entire world had the shared same experience of a threat to our mortality. You know, and like that's why I think we've seen some of the things we've seen happening in recent times, because we've all had to take a step back and go, actually, we're not untouchable in this world. You know, like we're affected by it the same way as everything else. But what's really important here, you know? Yeah.
I think, yeah, I agree. And I think the main difference is, you know, when people pass and move off of this mortal coil, it's kind of like short and sharp. And you go, oh, I must change my life. And then before you know it, you're back to your old ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this has been like, it's been like, pandemic. And it's not been like short or sharp. It's here.
Yeah.
Like, look, it's still 2020.
Yeah.
The numbers have fallen, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
But it's still here.
Yes.
And it might come back stronger come like autumn. We don't know. But it's still here. And I think that's what a lot of people are going to be like, okay. If I really want to do something I want to do, I got to get on it.
Yeah, totally. I love the sense of community it's created. You know, you sort of see people supporting, you know, shops in their local neighborhood, people clapping for the NHS, people sort of helping each other out. It's you know, there's been some good aspects that have come out of that, where people have started to sort of getting back to valuing each other as humans, rather than seeing other humans as an obstacle to your objective, but actually realizing that it's all about us all living together, you know. So
like you mentioned doing a podcast a couple of times. Okay, look, so you mentioned your friend. Sorry,
James Mulligan. I mean, he already records some podcasts on. I'm going to do him a disservice now, but like he works for a data consultancy, so he's already au fait and familiar with it all. But we've talked about doing it on different subjects. Yeah.
So different subjects. What subjects would you possibly consider doing?
So we're both sort of project management geeks, because that's talking about friendships. That's how we met, really. So we work together, and we're both quite into technology, creativity as PMs. And so the two themes that we had was one about just dispelling, or like debunking that myth around success and the people that write success and that propone it and market it. It's a falsehood. There's lots of different routes to it, and also there's lots of failures on the way there, and just trying to expose that a bit more. And then the other idea we had around the podcast is just incredible things that people have made, right? So whether that is an item of clothing, or whether it is a bridge or a stadium, or like a work of art. And we all know in the creative process, particularly if you're working with other people on something complex and to a deadline, there's a point where you think this is not going to happen, or this is the worst idea in the world, or we're going to fail. And like, again, it's that thing of when people look back on something incredible, like everyone just talks about the thing that's manifested in front of them, rather than actually the difficulties and the challenges and the moment when whoever had the vision suddenly thought, well, I'm never going to see this happen. And we wanted to have a podcast talking about that, right? Because anyone that's going through the process of trying to achieve something great, more often than not, when you're in the process, you're in that side of it, you're going, right, this is actually much more complex than I thought it would be. And I'm having all of these challenges, and we're not quite going to make it. What you need to hear is from people who have done those things in whatever field that you admire, go, yeah, you have that, you know, and we all go through it, and this is what happened. It was touch and go for a minute before we got there, you know, and we learn from each other in that, and from that shared experience. So that's what we were going to do, is basically just go and look at things we admire, from bits of music to art, or to, you know, architecture. Try and get those people on and just talk about stuff that didn't quite work, or what went wrong, or when you thought you were never really going to make it there, and just talk through that story, because people need to hear those stories, you know, rather than the curated versions of everything going perfectly, you know, because it's through the imperfection that actually quite interesting things happen.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it now. Look, both podcasts hold merit, and I think, yeah, you would definitely get people coming along. I would say go for option 2 with the creative one more so, because you talked about that a lot more passionately, and I could just see you must really okay, Princess 2 or Agile.
Yeah.
Which one is better?
Yeah.
Come, listen to this paint dry.
Mm.
No, I just feel your passion with the way you just spoke about it. Yeah, your passion's there with the creative. Just do it. Don't you know what I mean? I'd say go for it.
Yeah, well, if we do it, then we'll get you on the show. We'll get you talking about podcasts, right? Because you said you're on number 98, did you say, or is it?
I am on episode 82.
Yeah, 82. So when you started out and you did that first one and you were building an audience, you must have been going through the same process, thinking, is this how am I doing this? Is this the right idea? Is this going to be successful? Is anyone listening? Do you know what I mean? That's the bit that we want the stories about.
Oh yeah, put it this way. But when I first started this, I was like, okay, oh yeah, podcast. I was like, yeah, I think I was gonna name it The Endless Journey of Growth or something like that, and my mom just looked at me and went, "What the hell are you talking about?" I was like, okay. She was like, yeah, a little bit big for your own head there. I was like, okay, I'll change it. So, I first started out just talking into the mic, going, yes, this is me, Roddy B. In Day Out Podcast, episode number 1. I was like, after about 5 episodes, I was like, this is me where, oh God, I'm getting tired of my own voice here. I'm getting tired of my own voice. I really need to change this. Did an interview with my lady first and foremost. It's I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. Got a couple of other people I knew. And then I did my first interview. Oh, you should have seen my first interview, done remotely. Oh, it was special. I gotta say it was special. I had this guy named Liam. I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, okay. I was like, look, man, you got to take that leap at some point. You can't keep on interviewing people first. Yeah. I was like, okay. Leapt and I was using whatever you do, if you decide to do this remotely, always use Zoom. Don't use anything else, because I use this. Check this out. I use Skype. Okay, Skype. If you don't depending how Skype feels, you can record calls and sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Then to avoid that, I was like, okay, let me put it on OBS as well. So okay, so there's one layer of friction with Skype. 2 layers of friction with OBS. Okay. And OBS and Skype, sometimes it'll work perfectly together and then it'll be great. And sometimes it won't. And I was like, had it all set up, good to go. I was like, okay. Being called in, I was like, yep, didn't work. I was like, and I was sitting there, oh my God. Please. I'm looking like a fool right now. I'm looking like a fool. Please. I was like, no. Thankfully, Liam, he did podcasts as well. So he was like, yeah, I'll put it on. And he recorded everything. But I was just like, oh dear. That's through a little bit of stubbornness, and maybe it's my Nigerian sort of DNA in me, which is I know I'm going to make this happen. I tried to type a few more times. And then I was like, no, there has to be a better way because this is driving me insane. And
Mm.
I discovered Zoom 2 weeks
Yeah.
before lockdown. And it's like, yeah, which I'm going to say this, like, thankfully, no one I know and everything like this hasn't been harmed. And like, I don't wish any, like, I'm hoping, but lockdown with regards to Zoom was an absolute godsend because it went from hardly anyone on the world knowing about it, literally everyone in the world knowing about it. So it's like, yeah, do it over Zoom. I know Zoom. Yeah, it's like, where it was like, Zoom? No, I'll send you the link. You'll get it. But,
yeah. I mean, do you not find that like, I just, again, that sort of journey, everything that you've been through, but do you not find it fascinating how 8 months ago I kind of knew of Zoom. I think I had one call with a client on it, but I was using things like Skype, Blue Jeans, Google Hangouts. Now, like, probably close to maybe 80% of the world is using Zoom as some form of regular, both professional and personal communication. It's here to stay. Like, my little boy is Zooming his friends and having hangouts on it, and it's just like new habits that's formed, and it's incredible how the pandemic is, like, there are things that are now here that I don't think will be going anywhere anytime soon.
No, what I would say about the pandemic with regards to like pushing things forward, like working from home and doing that type of thing. Well, it was coming in. It was going to be here in sort of 10 years if this didn't happen. Pandemic happened, and like, it's fast forwarded all of that up until now. Look, I'm under no illusions that this is going to be like the absolute new way of working. I know people will go back to their offices and everything like this, but I think it's going to be a case of, it's going to be kind of, people most probably be in the office 2 to 3 times a week. And the rest of the time they're going to be working from home if that sort of setting allows it. Because I can't see people being sort of really comfortable doing that whole like, I'm on the train commuting thing from like all the way from Kent, Oxford, Cambridge into London, Leipzig, because that's where it is. And I think it might get normalized. I'm saying Easter next year, where people are like, okay, and that's if nothing flares up. But,
I mean, I think there's a huge, because we've been talking about it a lot at work around the return to work and watching the the sort of government position and rhetoric change over time. And I actually think there is a massive economic and sort of national productivity benefit to encouraging people to be able to work fluidly, be it in the office or to work remotely. One, because to your point, we don't know where we are with this thing in our ecosystem, right? And so lockdowns could happen at any point in time, and what you want is the bulk of people who can work to always be working wherever they are, rather than if we have to suddenly shut down the offices, the economy grinds to a halt again. So you need to mobilize that ability to work everywhere, really. And then, secondly, particularly for the creative industries, which are very like London or city centric, we miss out massively on talent, not just in remote parts or rural parts of the UK, but like globally as well. And so one of the things with this remote working, it's forced us to re-look at the creative process and how we collaborate, how we sort of engage with each other, really, and with other creatives to get things done. And has meant that we've been a bit more inventive. And for me, it means now, like, there are patterns and behaviors and etiquette by which you can work with creatives across the entire world through tools and through the things that we've become accustomed to, which before people would have said that's too hard to make something with someone on the other side of the world because you have to do it through calls and whatever else. We know we can do it now. So now is the next step of like, actually, how do we start to innovate through all of these things? And that, for me, that's exciting. If you're a creative and you suddenly go, well, I can work with anyone, anywhere, at any time, the potential of what you can do becomes limitless. And that also, that's got to be a benefit to, the economy and to productivity as well. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm hoping we retain some element of it and we don't just try and snap everything back into normal, because there are good things that have come out of this change, and as you say, some good things have been accelerated, and we need to keep those.
Like, excuse me. So if you like, so I imagine the sort of state of play for you guys is like, okay, like if the office is open, the office is there, but like you carry on with what you're doing right now. Like when it comes to sort of next year, like, do you see it being like, as it's a creative like industry you're in, like how practical do you think it can be? Because I know, like, you know what I mean, how practical do you think it really can be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the truth is we're all experimenting a lot, right, to try and figure out what have we lost and what have we gained, you know, with this change, and how much stuff is going to be irreversible that we're just going to have to learn to adapt with. There is, you know, as I said, we've learned to collaborate remotely. We've learned to sort of change the process a little bit, and particularly a lot of people, you know, our behaviors within the process to enable us to make things without people being in the same office environment. You do lose some things, you know, in particularly, you know, with what we do, there's a big part of it could be workshopping. You know, there's a point where a team needs to get together, especially when you've got lots of different disciplines, and just get in the room and bounce through ideas with each other. And, you know, as we said before, being together physically means you pick up on things. It's, you know, the sparks fly a little bit more. It's harder to do that on Zoom, like the energy level in the room as well. You know, people sat at the desk. It's not as easy. So whether or not we will get people to go back full time, and this is health conditions notwithstanding, because for us the most important thing is just make the well-being of our people, right? And so, not, if you don't need to put people at unnecessary risk, then just don't do it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's really that simple. But at some point, I think, you know, when people can return, you know, touch wood, we you know, we have vaccines and things that can help us better control and you know, live with the virus, then we may look at a situation of, well, keeping the fluidity, so allowing people to choose where they work or not, but we might move the office generally to be set up to be much more around collaboration. So when you need to come in for workshops, when you need to come in for sort of multiple meetings, rather than just coming in to be sat typing away at your desk every day, it's much more around the social aspect of working and creativity, which gives people a reason to come in as well and to sort of interact with each other. And the thing that you really, you know, you really miss, like we've done surveys during the process of this as we were planning the return to work, and also during lockdown, to get a feeling of how staff were feeling and employees were feeling. And, you know, naturally, a lot of people were still, like close to like 90% of people were still worried about returning to the office because of, you know, health risks. They work during lockdown, which is hats off to the team. But the main thing that people missed was being able to interact with each other. That scored almost as highly as people saying they don't want to come into the office. I mean, we're human beings, we're social animals. So making the office much more around that social environment, because people can do the work productive part, but they need to do solo anywhere. That's probably what we might start to look at for next year. But as I say, it's all sort of incremental test and learn, really. Yeah.
No, I can imagine. Where are your offices located in London?
So we're in Great Portland Street, but you know, one of the things that we so fairly central, but you know, when you sort of brainstorming what the future might be like, I mean, one of the ideas I've been talking to Jim, our group CEO, about is, what if you had lots of small offices or workspaces dotted across London? Because, you know, nobody unless they are earning a lot more money than I think they are, is living on Oxford Circus, or like living in Great Portland Street. People are living like slightly outside of town, or in other places. And so, if you had an office in somewhere east, say like Brick Lane, and somewhere around Brixton, and maybe somewhere slightly west like Hammersmith, you've got places that are closer to people's places of work, so the journeys are a bit shorter. There might be more options for people that mean they're not on public transport and at health risk, and they may then go in a bit more frequently. And so smaller offices dotted around London rather than one big office in central, which we have. But yeah, that's the future of work, like looking at all of these things, really.
Yeah, no, if I put it this way, it's going to be challenging times ahead. I'm not going to touch the economy with a barge pole on this conversation, because I think I could be chewing on that bone of worry for quite some time. To say the least. Got to say, I have looked at your Twitter, and apart from lots of pictures of, how can I put it, a rather happy left back or right back, are quite depressed. GOAT, greatest player of all time. Did you see that game? Did you?
Oh man, I'd actually totally forgotten. I haven't used it in such a long time about my Twitter, but yeah, I am an Arsenal fan. I'm not sure if I mentioned that at the top. I actually live in the old stadium now, and so I'm that much of a.
Wait, so you're in North London?
I live in North London now, yeah. So it's
so you must know the old dairy.
Yes, yeah, I do, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Crouch End. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize we were so close. We could have done this in person, socially distanced then, sort of.
If I knew, I would have like, hey, come on over. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I go past the old dairy quite a bit, because I've got a few friends actually that live around that Crouch End area. It looks nice. Looks like a nice place to start. We might go in there next time. But you'll have to give us a shout then, and meet in real life. Yeah.
Indeed, absolutely. Yep. No, you did not mention you are Arsenal fan, but congratulations on the FA Cup. So yeah, there is that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So So yeah, you hit poor old Chelsea in the throat right there to get that trophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. It's I've tried to watch a bit less and less over the like when I was a kid. Me and my brother, we used to be really emotionally invested in Arsenal and football, to the point where it would ruin your whole week if we lost. And I'm less obviously invested in it now. I'm still a fan, still keep up with things, but the concept of my week being ruined by 11 people who didn't know that I existed was kind of like a bit of a sort of a realization moment. But what I guess particularly, being an Arsenal fan and sort of the community around Highbury and Islington, and probably for a lot of local football clubs, is very much a part of the identity of the local community. So, I go to see games less and less, but on match days, when everything turns, red and white, and you sort of see all the people open up their houses to start, serving food and for the stalls, and you see neighbors of all walks of life, connecting over something. There is something quite nice about that, the fact that there is something that human beings, irrelevant of wherever they are, whatever state they're in, whatever background they have, however they identify, have this thing that they share, and they bond over it, and everyone is the same for that one, for those 90 minutes, the whole, 5 mile square radius, whatever it is just, it's connected and it's one. And that's quite a nice thing to experience, every other Saturday when you sort of live in the neighborhood. So yeah, that's why I still keep plugged in with the Gooners. It's pretty much like a sense of community, right? There's always something someone will have a chat with you about, because of that. So yeah.
I'm liking it. Yeah, you see, you say that, oh, I'm at peace with it. No, you're not. I can tell. I can tell. I can tell.
Yeah, well, invested too many years, I guess,
Yeah,
in it.
yeah. I just like put you in front of a TV with the game on. Yeah, you change. You're different. I know that too well. Yeah, awesome. Like, damn, like, you know what? Definitely. If I knew how close you were, I'd have said, yeah, come on. I would have invited you over, no doubt. Like anyone else who might be listening, no. Do not try tracking me down. Do not try finding me. It's like, yeah, I joke. I don't live in Crouch End. It's far, far away. Oh, dear, loving it. Got to say, right. One of the things I have to ask, seeing as you're a Nigerian lad, what is your favorite Nigerian dish?
Oh man, I mean, so I'm gonna go with it's a classic, but it's a controversial classic, right? So it's obviously jollof rice.
Okay, yeah, no. That's no controversy.
Well, there's controversy because at the moment there are certain people in certain parts of the world that are trying to lay claim to having invented jollof rice. I would say
everyone in Ghana is wrong.
Yes, pretty much. I've got a lot of friends who are Ghanaian, and we're having this backwards and forwards about the jollof wars at the moment.
Jollof wars.
But yeah, so jollof rice, I'm a big fan. A bit of pepper soup, but I guess that sort of the all-time favorite, and I can remember the exact moment I tasted this, and it was like something exploded in my mind. Is suya. I remember like being a kid, and my parents, it's one of the times we'd gone back to visit family around Christmas time, and sort of like was driving past, and there's sort of street food cart, and I was hungry and it looked like some meat. I said, "Oh mum, can I have some of that barbecue?" And it was like incredibly spicy, but also the most delicious thing that I'd ever experienced in my entire life. And every time I eat suya, the same thing gets triggered in my brain. But yeah.
Yeah, no, put it this way. Yeah, no.
Give me a suya and some Guinness, and I'm a happy man, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm liking it. Put it this way, Syria. I was when I went. Oh my God, so many years ago. When I visited Nigeria, like on a regular basis, like my uncle, he like went to a country club all the time. So me and my cousin, and they had this like big stand. What did that? And like the first time like trying it out, it was like sort of eating it like because the pepper was so strong, like just like covered as that.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I wonder why, like, because obviously beef jerky is a thing and the rest of it. Like, I'm pretty sure if you could just land a bit more of that in pubs and bars, like people would love it. It's there's definitely a market for it, I'm pretty sure. But it's being kept as a secret within our community.
Like, this is the reason why, because it tastes damn good, and we're not laying it out. Look, this is the thing. I haven't been to Nigeria for decades, but like, look, I tell you this now. If I was anywhere near that country club, I will be stopping. I will be in there, like, and that'll be one of the first things I have. Just be in a traffic jam, or as they call it locally, a go slow, all the way. Just like with my laptop or whatnot. Just like, I'll be patient. Don't worry. Just like back in the day. One of the things now, seeing as I had supreme cosmic powers to make great and wonderful things happen in this world, like if I could grant you one wish, what would that one wish be?
Oh, one wish. I'm trying to think of something which is not contextual to everything that's kind of going on, because most immediately what I would like is just to be able to go somewhere on holiday. If I could have one wish, I'm going to be cheeky. I'm going to ask for infinite wishes.
You can't have that. No. I'm no punk cosmic entity. That's like, you get, like, I said one wish. That's all you get. One.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, one wish. What one wish could I have? You know what? If I could have one wish, I would probably wish to have been able to have been in the recording studio with the Wu-Tang Clan at the height of their sort of powers, right? So when they're recording like the 36 Chambers and everything else, because like I'm a massive hip hop fan. And you know, I think actually a lot of the modern stuff is actually pretty good. My son's listening to it, I'm getting into it, but I do like a lot of the classic 90s hip hop. I mean, it's where I grew up on. But the thing that was unique about the Wu-Tang Clan is that no one in hip hop, I think to this day, has produced a sound like them since, and no one had anything before. I mean, songs with no chorus, no hook. You just 11 people rapping one after the other, right? You know, I'd love to have, and you know, with the RZA, to be in the studio when that creative process is happening and they're making those albums. That would have been incredible. Just to witness it would have been incredible.
Nice. Now put it this way, yeah, 90s hip hop, yeah, well, 90s rap, hip hop,
Yeah,
the era of bling bling, like yeah, like old dirty bastard from the Wu-Tang Clan, but yeah, Biggie, like
yeah,
I was like, yeah, I was listening to Victory, earlier today. I was like, yeah.
It's
It's forever, but as long as we're here, we'll better shine together. I was like, yeah.
It's brilliant because it's kind of really sort of come back round. So my like I said, the boy, he's listening to like, I mean, he's always listening to Travis Scott and you know AD Tracy and all of that, and like some of it's good. Some of it took a bit of a while for me to warm to it, but then I guess in the same sort of way that with my old man, I sort of, you know, discovered stuff like Sam Cooke and the Temptations, and I was like, Dad, this stuff's great. He's doing the same, so he sort of like discovered like the Loonies and you know Wu-Tang Clan, and he's sort of playing these songs. He's like, yeah, this is the jam, man. This is some classic hip hop. I'm like, you know, this is my stuff that you're listening to. And then the minute he finds that out, it's embarrassing. He's like, I don't want to listen to this. Like, it's like old man music now.
You know what? It always makes me laugh when you hear a kid like, yeah, I discovered DMX. You're like, oh, really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like I remember when I listened to it, I go, oh my Lord, take the headphones off. There's like,
yeah.
There's like throw some holy water on it. There's like, I'll listen to it again. It's like,
yeah. Oh man, it's like, but yeah, it's just if you ever get the chance, actually, there's a you should watch you may have seen it on Netflix, but it's like Hip Hop Evolution. There's like 2 or 3 seasons of it, and they don't cover everybody, but they talk a lot about you just you see the renaissance, right, of like urban black music through hip hop from what started like, you know, sort of the Grandmaster Flash, the Furious Fives, out of the sort of the breakdance and the dancing scene to how people evolved it. And, you know, what I love about it is everyone put their own sort of local bit of flavor on it. But there's always like a creative, what's the word? Like like someone who is a catalyst or a maverick that just took their part of the scene and moved it on, right? Be that the Wu or be it, you know, Outkast, or they just came out with a sound where everyone just goes, what the hell is that? And then nothing is the same since. You know, it's if you've not seen it, watch it. Watch the series of documentary. It's brilliant.
I have like they sort of like coupling up like different pieces of technology, like they were going, that's right, they went from sort of big house parties to like block parties, and then before they knew it, they were like in stadiums. I like this is like the best, like I think the moment what stuck out to me the most, and this is when they had Rum DMC in like doing a big concert, and then they dropped the one tune what made the whole crowd just lose its mind. Like, do you have an idea what that might be?
It's got to be Walk This Way, I would imagine. Right?
No. It was like My Adidas.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
And like the people from Adidas were there. They looked at the crowd and went, "Yeah, here's $1 million contract. Thank you." Crazy.
I mean, that whole thing of just like shaping culture, and you know, these were people who sort of shaped culture out of real adversity, right? And kind of sort of shaping the world around them from their small little corners of wherever they are, just trying to get by and get a living through doing it, you know. And it's that brilliant point where like Jay-Z, who's, you know, he's like a multi-billionaire now and like at the peak of the game and has been for a while, and his manager at the time was saying, well, the guy would rather be up to sort of, you know, dodgy stuff on the street because he can earn some money from that than the rapping, which he wasn't earning enough from. And thankfully, you know, they were able to get him the right deal. But like that just kind of goes to show you like the talent that was in all of those communities, you know, in the US that like just needed to be unlocked, and has shaped popular music since. You know, that's the truth. Like pop music is now built out, like our current pop music is built out of all that, you know, everything those hip hop pioneers did back in the day.
Oh, you got to remember the DNA goes deep. It runs deep. It goes like all the way into the blues, like and like from the blues to rock and roll, like, you know what I mean. Hip hop came out, and like people are like, blues music, and it's like you kind of go rock and roll. Yeah, if you didn't have blues, you wouldn't have rock. You wouldn't have you wouldn't have rap, hip hop. You wouldn't have any of it. So there is a rich history right there. Like, got to love it. Got to love it. Like, for one of my last questions, is there a book you would recommend? You've already recommended the show. Is there a book you would recommend over these sort of lockdown times?
Yeah, I mean, there's do you want something more kind of factual or fiction or
Like, hey, remember, this is your show, sir.
Okay, well, I will give something which is, I mean, it's also sort of topical with everything that's going on, but Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's a writer that writes for The Atlantic. He also writes, he's also written quite a few of the Black Panthers, and I'm a massive comic book fan. And it's basically, it's sort of written as a series of letters to his son about the experience of being African American in America, and about the system and the injustices and sort of the journey. But it's not. It points towards the challenges that you experience through racial prejudice, but it also points towards lots of beautiful things within the Black community and sort of historically Black colleges and universities. It's just a really touching piece and really well written and objective and detailed, and the stuff that I even learned about, you know, during that process. And I think it's, you know, if anyone ever wants to educate themselves, given, you know, the recent events that's what's going on, I think it has to be up there. I honestly think if it was on the school curriculum, the world would be a very different place in a few generations. So that would be my recommendation, Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All I've got to simply say is, can you tell the lovely people out there how they can find you?
So I guess the best way to find me is LinkedIn, Ete Davies. There are very few of me on LinkedIn. I think I'm literally the only person with the name that I have, so you can find me on there. Also, if you want to follow some of the work I'm doing with Culture Heroes, then you find us on Twitter, so Culture Heroes UK. That's how to reach me.
Perfect. What I'll do, I'll put all your information into the show notes description down below, so please reach out. Find this man. He's got a rich source of information and knowledge he wishes to share with you all. I got to say thank you very much, Ete, for coming on today. It is much
Thank you for having me. It's good fun. Yeah.
Like always. Let me just say thank you to all of you, my friends, my life warriors out there. I say stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world, and then some. Have a great day, guys. Yeah. Peace. And we are